Have you ever just looked around at your life, your job, your routine, everything, and thought to yourself, yeah, it's okay. It's not bad, but it's not exactly setting your world on fire either. Well, that's what we're going to get into today. Why that feeling of okay might actually be the most dangerous place you can be, and more importantly, how you can break out of it to start building a life you're truly excited about.
Let's just kick things off with this quote from Alex Hormozy, because it really hits hard. The idea of just living an okay life just sounds so terrifying to me. Think about that for a second. Terrifying. It's this idea that settling for good enough might be even scarier than failing spectacularly. And that's exactly the idea we're going to unpack.
So what is this trap of okay? What are we really talking about here? Well, it all boils down to this sneaky little thing called comfortable complacency.
I mean, it's a question we've all probably asked ourselves at some point, right? Why do we stick with that job that pays the bills but we don't love? Or that relationship that's fine? Or that city that's just good enough for now? Well, it turns out there's a fascinating psychological reason for this.
It's something called the region beta paradox. And here's a simple way to think about it. Imagine your destination is just a mile away. You'd probably just walk, right? No big deal. But what if it was 2 miles away? Suddenly, you're grabbing the car keys to get there faster. The paradox is that the worst situation, the longer distance, actually pushes you to find a better, more effective solution. And the exact same thing happens in our lives.
And this quote just nails it. An okay life, an okay job, it just doesn't create enough pain or activation energy to make us change. If your job was truly awful, you'd be on LinkedIn tonight, guaranteed. But when it's just okay, we get stuck. We settle into that zone of comfortable complacency, and that can lead to the biggest regret of them all, just not doing something about it sooner.
Okay, so we see the trap. Now, how do we get out? Well, that brings us to our next section, the mindset shift. Because escaping isn't about changing your job tomorrow. It starts with changing your mind right now.
The very first shift is a major reality check. So many of us are afraid to make a big change because, well, what will people think? We're so worried about the judgment of our family, our friends, our coworkers. But let's get real for a second. Let's zoom out.
And Alex Hormozy just puts this so bluntly, it's perfect. In 3 generations, everyone who ever knew you will be gone, including every single person whose opinion you're worried about right now. Their judgment is temporary. It's a blip. But this is your life, happening right now. You have to do it for you.
And that realization leads to this incredibly powerful way of looking at your choices. See, every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. Regret in some form is pretty much unavoidable. So the goal isn't to live a life with 0 regrets. The goal is to consciously choose which regrets you're willing to live with.
So let's just lay it out. Here's the choice. On one side, you have regret A, the short-term, sharp pain of a few tough, awkward conversations. On the other side, you have regret B, the long-term, dull, chronic ache of spending a decade in a life that you know isn't right for you. When you frame it like that, which one really seems worse? All right, so we've got the mindset. We know why we need to escape the okay trap. But now, for the fun part, the how. This is your escape plan, and it all starts with the science of building new habits.
So there's this really cool breakdown from neuroscientist Andrew Huberman. He explains that our 24-hour day can basically be split into 3 phases based on our biology. For the first 8 hours or so that you're awake, your brain is literally flooded with chemicals like dopamine and norepinephrine. That means you are primed for focus, for action, for getting things done. It is your absolute peak performance window.
So, what does this actually mean for you? It's simple, really. You need to schedule the hardest things, the stuff you're most likely to put off, the tasks that have the most friction during that first phase of your day. Use your brain's natural chemistry to your advantage. Get that workout in, write that business plan, do the hard stuff first.
Building the right habits is like putting a powerful engine in your car. But where are you actually driving to? That brings us to the next part of the escape plan, designing the lifestyle you actually want to live.
You know, when we hear the phrase luxurious lifestyle, our minds immediately jump to fancy cars and mansions, right? But what if true luxury wasn't about money at all? What if, as these notes suggest, it's really about having control? So let's break down the pillars of this new definition of wealth. It's about having control of your time. You decide when and where you work. It's about freedom from constant financial stress. It's about living in a high-quality environment with good people around you. And of course, having your physical health and your mental peace. Now that sounds like a successful life. Okay, this is the final piece of the puzzle. And honestly, it might be the most critical part. You can have the right mindset, you can have the perfect plan, but none of it means anything without this last ingredient: action.
You ever have a decision you need to make, and you just let it sit in the back of your mind for days or weeks? That feeling, that low-level hum of stress? That's what we call anxiety cost. It's the mental tax you pay for procrastinating. Every single second you delay making a choice, you're letting that problem rent space in your head for free. And the impact of beating this is just huge. Think about it. If you make a decision by the end of the day instead of letting it drag out to the end of the week, you are literally moving through life 7 times faster. Imagine the progress you could make, the things you could accomplish, if you just compressed your decision-making time like that. And that's the wild part. So often, the thing standing between you and the life you want isn't some giant, impossible mountain. It's a handful of hard conversations that you've been putting off. Quitting that okay job, ending that okay relationship, starting that business. It all begins with a single, difficult conversation. The life you want is probably way closer than you think. So we end up right back where we started. But now, hopefully, with a totally new perspective. We know that regret is a part of life. You can't avoid it. So the only real question left is, which one are you going to choose? The short-term pain of taking action or the long-term pain of wondering, what if?